Yes, AI is greatly useful wherever there is data, wherever there is pattern recognition within data. Of course, AI is going to be of tremendous help. But again, the question comes to when you start using in a way that it is impacting the diagnosis or it is impacting the treatment of a patient. That's where you are crossing that line. That's where.
All right, we're live. Thank you for listening to another episode of Life Sciences 360 from wherever you are. I know I don't say this enough, but if you enjoy listening to this show and the guests that we have on here, please subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Google. And if you watch the YouTube videos that we upload every week, would love for you to subscribe on that channel as well so we can continue bringing you a lot of guests and insights from the life sciences industry. And talking about people from the industry, today I have with me Vivek Thakkar. He is a regulatory professional specializing in artificial intelligence and machine learning based software as medical devices. He has about 14 years of experience. He's worked with some big companies like Abbott, Cardinal Health, and Roche, and also a lot of medical device and medtech startups. And I'm really excited to have him on the show because AI in healthcare is one of the most hyped and buzzed topics right now on all social media and all regulatory conversations. So welcome to the show, Vivek.
Hey, thank you, Harsh. Thank you for having me here. And yeah, you are absolutely right. There's a lot of buzz around AI and, of course, the application of AI in healthcare too. So yeah, I'm very excited to talk about this.
So the first thing that anytime I hear about AI, the first thing that comes to my mind is that AI is like a dog who is not on a leash and walking around in a yard that doesn't have a fence. So any person that I talk to, that's kind of the impression I get. Being in your shoes, what you're doing with the medtech startups and the medtech companies, where is that line? Because to me, I still don't know when artificial intelligence falls into the medical device bucket and when it should be left alone. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Harsh. So as you rightly pointed out, there's a lot of presence of AI everywhere today. And I think the hype right now is more because of these large language models and ChatGPT and Bard and everything. But AI has been there since a long time, and AI has been used in healthcare applications also. Right now, there are more than 500 AI ML devices that are in market, which are cleared by FDA. So there is a lot of things going on. But what happens is healthcare is there are a lot of applications of AI in healthcare. You can use AI to automate the billing system. You can use AI to automatically file your claims or summarize something, or you can use for hospital management, and everything is within the care delivery umbrella. But what happens is whenever you start using AI in a way that it exposes really high risk to patient, that's when it comes under the realm of being regulated, or to be specific, as a medical device. Everything is about risk. Everything is about risk in healthcare. So as the risk increases, the regulation increases.
Yeah, you brought up a good point about regulation, because even that's a topic from what I've been researching, is that there isn't a clear guidance from any regulatory agencies about what a company should do if they are creating either AI-based software as medical devices or just using AI for clinical research in the biotech or pharma world. So what I wanted to ask you is, if some company if a startup identifies that they are actually dealing with an AI, which is possibly a medical device, how should they even go about figuring out what regulations apply? Because there's not enough from the regulatory agencies itself.
Actually, to be honest and to be fair, on the regulatory agency side, I mean, there are a lot of guidance documents out there, and I'm only focused on FDA right now because there are so many things going on around the world that we can have like 5 different discussions on other agencies. But for FDA, they have been very active since last few years in terms of promoting these digital health technologies and putting together a regulatory framework around them. So there are a bunch of different guidances. There is in last couple of years, they have a division within the medical device center called Digital Health Center of Excellence. And that division is responsible. One of the responsibilities is to oversee the AI machine learning based devices. So there's a lot going on, but you have to see it from a point of view that what are the overall regulations, right? I mean, yeah, we are trying to see if these devices are safe and effective because they are used for medical purpose. So the framework that has been developed for medical devices is being used for AI and machine learning based tools also. Now, many places it works, but there are a lot of places where it doesn't work too. So then the manufacturers or the medtech companies, they have to be very innovative in terms of putting together a regulatory strategy to see how they can satisfy these requirements. So I would say don't wait for the regulations to be in place. Instead, try and work with FDA, try and educate them also in terms of what kind of validation methods you are using, what kind of performance tests you are using. So that way, the whole framework is being developed together by industry and by the regulators.
Have you come across any example of where like the traditional med device regulations may not apply for AI? Because I know you mentioned that in some cases, companies can start using that as a baseline. But do you know in any case where it may not apply?
Yeah, there are many cases, of course, because I mean, the obvious ones are the one that are related to manufacturing. Of course, the manufacturing of a device, hardware, medical device, there are so many regulation standards that of course, they don't apply to software because, there's nothing to manufacture there. But apart from those obvious ones, I think the one important differentiation that I see, and there are a lot of challenges around that also, is the iterative nature of these AI machine learning based tools. By nature, they want to artificial intelligence, or when we say artificial intelligence in medical devices, we mean machine learning, which is like a subset of the whole artificial intelligence world. So when you are using machine learning based technologies, I think the machine learns and then it provides output for a totally different situation. Now, if the machine keeps learning when it is used in real world, then the output can be different. So the idea is for a medical device manufacturer to make sure that the performance doesn't change over time. And therefore, when a traditional medical device changes in the world, in the real world, then there is a regulatory application that you have to do. But for AI, you cannot keep doing applications for every new release of the software. So that's a big challenge, that's a big difference where the continuous improvement algorithms are still not something that are being out there and not being reviewed or not being accepted by FDA. FDA always requires your algorithm to be locked. And by locked, it means that yes, you can rev it up later, but then when you release it, it has to be locked. And when you are revving it up, you have to go through a regulatory process. But again, just to also answer your previous question that what are regulatory agency doing? They most recently, they released a draft guidance document on how to manage these post-market changes for AI machine learning based devices. It's called the Predetermined Change Control Plan. And I can link it in the resources, but that's a great guidance to look at for companies who are trying to do continuous improvement algorithms.
Interesting. That's good to know. I wanted to switch gears and ask you about the clinical research side of things, right? So what have you seen from how the clinical trial process is done for just a software as medical device versus AI-based software as medical device? What are some of the things you would say that companies should consider if they are in the clinical trials of an AI-based software as medical device?
So are you saying if a company is developing a drug and they are doing clinical trials, how does AI impact them?
No, I was wondering more about like if a company is in the clinical trials phase and they are developing an AI-based software as medical device, how should they plan that clinical trial versus like the traditional software as medical device with no AI?
Yeah. Okay. So I think what we are trying to say is how are you going to clinically validate your algorithm, correct? Because then so AI has application in clinical trial of a drug, which is a totally different topic of drug development. But if you're talking about validating your clinically validating your algorithm, Yeah, that's a huge piece of generating evidence for safety and efficacy of your device, of your algorithm. Again, you always treat them or always treat these as medical devices. Like, what do we do in medical device? What do we do in traditional medical device? We make sure that the device is performing as it is intended in the clinical environment it was designed for. So similarly, for algorithms, if you are developing an algorithm which at some point in the clinical workflow, it's going to impact and it's going to make a difference, you have to validate it in that particular situation, in the real life clinical situation. Once you develop your algorithm, you do all the tests that you want to do in-house, you validate it in-house, you find the sensitivity, specificity, and you find out how the algorithm is performing in the population that you are intending the algorithm to be used. And once you do that, you feel that, okay, now I have developed something, I know my use case, and I know that it is performing well on the bench, so to call the bench testing. And then you take the algorithm and you put it in a clinical setting. And then you see if the real world population that you are targeting, how is the algorithm performing in those populations. So that's again validating your algorithm on a data set that is completely independent from the data set that you have used to develop or to train or test or tune your algorithm.
Okay. And this might sound a silly question if I ask, but it's like if a company or anybody that's doing clinical research in the medtech space, if they're using tools like ChatGPT for any part of clinical research, uh, how do you even go about? From what I understand, ChatGPT is more like open source. There isn't like, it's not like a traditional software where you go and the vendor provides you. It's an open source. So how do you deal with even validating or showing that you've done some effort, because it's there's no lock to it, it's open?
Yeah, no, Harsh, I think you are touching upon some really current topics and something which is a real buzz right now in the industry. There is not a single day in last few months that has gone by where I have not read some different application of ChatGPT or in healthcare or outside. So there's a lot going on out there. But I think when you say ChatGPT, and let me just generalize it by saying the large language models, right? That's what we are talking about. The generative AI, which a large language model is a kind of generative AI. So Chat GPT, the way it is right now, my answer is no. We cannot use it for any kind of medical purpose. Of course, as you rightly pointed out, that it has been trained on a data set. We don't know what it is trained on. There are several biases that have already been incorporated. That, of course, health information is pretty sensitive, and health information is so there are a lot of privacy issues also. So there are a lot of unknowns in the current Chat GPT to be used in a healthcare setting or as a medical device. But if you talk about large language models, yes, there are applications of large language models in healthcare. If you see, Google recently announced this, or they are, working on testing this large language model called MedPalm, which is being trained on a lot of different literature for scientific literatures and a lot of different clinical information, which is specific to be used in a healthcare setting. So I think when the industry starts focusing on developing large language models which are specifically targeted for healthcare, that's when the real question of whether it can be a medical device or not can be, even considered. Because right now we are in the stages of development of such technology.
Yes, because there's an exciting part and a nervous part to it, because when you use something like ChatGPT, you can see that it is able to demonstrate that it works, to give you the results to some extent, obviously depending on what you input into the ChatGPT. But again, as you said, just because it's able to do maybe 60 or 70% of the job doesn't mean you start using it, because there are no controls around it. And until, if there are other models, like you gave the example of Google, that are specifically designed for the industry, that have the controls, that are transparent on what they have been trained on, like the literature and all, then maybe it you can justify that you're using that for doing. So I want to ask you a little bit about the regulatory side of it, right? So more around regulatory intelligence. So filing regulatory applications, or even understanding what other observations or any violations that medical device manufacturers have got who try to either market or submit an application for SAMD or any other type. What do you think is the role of AI in those kind of regulatory intelligence area? Like how do you think companies can use just to understand the regulatory intelligence, not product focus, but just what's going on in the world around these regulations?
Yeah, no, of course, that's a good question. And yeah, for of course, as I said, the applications has a lot. There's a lot of applications in medtech, in biotech, in regulatory intelligence, in healthcare. But if you are using it for a purpose, if you are using any machine learning model for the purpose of gathering information, let's say, and making sure, oh, what is in that regulation, what was happened, search for the database and see how many complaints are there for one particular type of device or one particular type of code, all those things. Yes, AI is greatly useful wherever there is data, wherever there is pattern recognition within data. Of course, AI is going to be of tremendous help. But again, the question comes to when you start using in a way that it is impacting the diagnosis or it is impacting the treatment of a patient. That's where you are crossing that line. That's where you are entering into a very highly regulated space. Okay, and there's a lot of scrutiny in this space. So you have to be cognizant. You have to make sure that the claims that you are making, that your AI can do, where do they fall? Where do they fall in the categorization of whether you are serving a medical purpose or you are serving an administrative purpose? And I think that the regulatory intelligence piece, typically given on the based on the use case, will fall under the administrative purpose for AI to be used.
Okay. And this is so another question I had for you is around writing or creating regulatory submissions. My first job was in reg affairs, so I did a little bit of regulatory submissions, but then I moved into quality and compliance, and since then I haven't really done much in the regulatory submissions space. But have you seen any examples, or do you think AI can be generative AI or large language models can be used to write regulatory dossiers or submissions? Like, think of it like this, I don't have no idea about how medical device works, but this is my child brain thinking about this, where you go in and say, this is the class of medical device that I'm developing. Here's some of the specs that I know. Here's the countries that I want to target for my product. And the AI spits out an outline of how you should write your regulatory submission and even tells you like what to fill out. Have you seen that companies do it, or how soon do you think it's going to happen?
It might happen. It might be happening right now. I mean, yeah. I can ask AI to generate an outline for me to write a 510K submission, which is a kind of submission we do to FDA to get clearance for these products, because there are outlines, there are guidance documents which are publicly available from FDA, suggesting what should be the content and what should be the kind of information that they are expecting. So it's not a trade secret. I mean, it's how to develop a submission, what to write in a submission. You can find plenty of guidance out there.
Yep.
The real skill or the real talent is how do you make that submission customized to your device, to your story, to your evidence. So each submission is going to be different. Like, of course, we claim equivalence in terms of the performance because of the regulations. That's how new class 2 devices are introduced in the market. But in a regulatory submission, it's a story. It's a story that you tell the reviewer. That what is the clinical problem you are solving, what is your claim, what is your intended use, how you are supporting that intended use, what are the kind of validation studies that you have done that supports that intended use. And there are a lot of details in terms of, as I mentioned earlier, analytical validation. You do something in-house, there is clinical validation. If somebody is going to interact with your device, there needs to be usability engineering study done, because no matter you pass everything, but if the user is not able to use it, then uh, it, the entire effort will go in vain. So there are many things that goes into a regulatory submission. So outline, yes, AI can generate an outline that this section needs to be here, this content. But whenever, as a regulatory professional, when I write a submission, um, it is also a combination of my own experience with FDA earlier, right? Because I know that, oh, you know what, there is other submission where I work with FDA. This is the kind of information they are looking at. This is the kind of information. It is a combination of all the conversations I have had with different regulatory agencies, different industry groups. So those are the kind of experiences, those are the kind of discussion that I kind of put into a regulatory submission to make it flow and to have that cohesive story explained in the submission. So maybe a great kind of super generative AI can do that in future. But right now, I guess the regulatory professional who can handle that flow in a little bit better way as compared to AI.
Right. And that's the thing with people that I talk in this space. Is this is a common thread that yes, there are a lot of AI tools available, and there are more coming each week from small tech startups, or even big players like Microsoft and Google are making big moves in the AI space. But there, the far future that you can just use AI without a human, I don't see that happening for a long time. And you gave a very good example about how your past conversations, being in regulatory meetings, or being talking to FDA in those meetings, and that experience, or being in your past role going through an FDA inspection, you can put all those learnings into that submission, which AI will fail if it tries. It cannot do, because it doesn't know that, right? That's why it's artificial versus your brain, which is why people want to hire a person, because of their past experience in different companies. So what I
Exactly.
want to
I think
ask.
Harsh, you actually, to me, just wanted to, sorry
Yeah.
for interrupt, but you touched upon a very good point there when you mentioned human in the loop, because I think it is of great importance in healthcare. Um, because if you see in healthcare, it is all about, well, if you are a company making a device, it's all about de-risking your device, right? You want to make sure that you are safe and effective, and at the same time, you're not adding any new risk or creating any new risk. So it's all about de-risking your device. So if your device is an AI algorithm, you want to make sure that there is a human who is supervising the output of that AI, and making sure that it is correct, or making sure it aligns, or just having a double check. So having that human in the loop is currently a regulatory requirement, or not requirement, as in we don't have independent AI taking diagnostic decision or treatment decision. We always have a healthcare physician looking at it and making sure that it is correct. So that's a very important de-risking strategy for your device, to have a human in the loop, right? So it's the and when you validate such technology, you are not just validating the AI algorithm. You are validating the team, the combination of AI and human, how they are performing versus a human alone. So I always, there is this one topic. I was listening to one webinar, and someone mentioned that, would you be comfortable to go in a flight which is completely on autopilot, or would you like to go in a flight where there is a pilot along with autopilot to support? So that risk is that the trust in AI is not at a point where it can independently take any diagnostic decisions.
Mm. That's a great point. And this kind of brings me to a question as you were talking. about the importance of human or the skills. When you started your career, 14 years back, AI was not where it is today. So the skills that you needed to get into your first regulatory role versus what a person that's graduating today from a master's program, now they are faced with the challenge because they also need to understand, the whole AI thing. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they're not passionate about tech. And to them, it's a burden like, wow, I need to now know this to fight for a job because the world is changing fast. You see where I'm going with this? So my question is, for somebody who's new entering the regulatory industry, whether it's pharma or biotech, what kind of skills do they need to get in addition to what you learned, but more focused on the AI side? What do they need to know so they can compete and get a job?
Yeah, no, that's again, it's an interesting question, Harsh. What I believe is one of the important things that you need is an interest. You need to be interested in this. Otherwise, if you are doing this for a job, yes, you can take a couple of courses, you can enroll into some certification program, answer the interview questions, and get a job. But after a couple of years, you won't be happy because that's not something you are interested in. So having that interest is step one to be able to get somewhere in this particular field. And it's not just this particular field, for anything. In my case, yes, I my background, of course, I'm an engineer by background, and I've been working in the medical device industry a lot. Initially, I worked on the hardware devices, but I had a very keen interest on the AI side since the beginning. Initially, I thought AI for me was all that they show in movies, right? The AI is gonna just take over the world, and so it
Yep.
was just like a it was like a fantasy science fiction for me. But around 2012, 2013, there was a lot of buzz about deep learning at that point. And then there was some discussion, or I came across some discussion regarding the application of AI in healthcare. And that's when like a switch flipped in me. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is combining what I have been doing for the long time and my interest. Right. So that combination kind of pushed me to go deeper into it. So I would say if that interest is there, you will find your way, you will find courses, you will find some kind of mentor who can help you. You will start listening to podcasts like this.
Yep.
So that's all I would say, for anyone who is coming out of the school right now. There is a ton of information available out there. If you are interested, it will start coming your way.
Yeah, and that's the thing with all the information. Sometimes it's hard to know what is noise versus what is the right signal. And I feel like everything about AI is kind of now drinking from a fire hose or whatever that analogy is. It's like that. Every day I open my computer, there's another article. And yeah, so it's definitely a challenge for people who are coming in because they will have to get some additional skills. And again, there's a quote that I heard from this tech entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. His name is Naval Ravikant. And he says that the information is abundant, but the desire to learn is scarce, right? So
Exactly.
yeah.
That kind of ties to the point I was trying to make. So yeah.
Yeah. So what do you like doing outside of work when you're not defining regulatory strategies and reviewing regulatory documents?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's a lot to life other than this. My little daughter, she's gonna turn 2 years old. So love spending time with her, and I'm a big enthusiast of working out. I have a gym built in my garage.
Nice.
So me and my family love taking walks. We love going on hikes, and then of course, we are getting into, I think in California, at least you're starting to get into the weathers where we can do something outside. It was terrible since last few months with the weather.
Yep. I moved from California last year, so I do miss some parts of living there. Definitely not the monthly expenses in North
Of
Carolina
course.
where I'm right now. So I don't miss that. But yeah, food and just people on the West Coast in the biotech industry, definitely miss connecting with them. So we talked a lot about AI today, and after leaving this episode, and people who are gonna listen to this, what I want to ask you this question, kind of to wrap things up. As a regulatory professional, are you happy with what's happening with AI, or are you scared? Like, where are you on that spectrum?
Yeah. So, yeah, and I see all these articles about people getting worried about AI, and on the other side of the spectrum where, but see, everything has to be like FDA says, or like in the regular everything. There's a risk benefit ratio, right? There's a risk benefit ratio of every new technology, of every new innovation that the industry does. So, of course, it is very hard to ignore the risk that AI possess, whether in healthcare. And of course, in healthcare, the risk is amplified because we are dealing with some sensitive information, and also, of course, we are dealing with patients' life. So a lot of amplification of the risk happens in AI, but also in other sectors, there are many risks that are there, but at the same time, there are benefits too. So I believe that as we are kind of going on this journey of developing AI, there has to be a very close eye on what kind of regulations are we putting in there. Are we over regulating it, or are we regulating it enough? And what kind of guardrails do you have in place to make sure that we extract the benefit out of AI, and of course, by minimizing the risk? And that's exactly what we do with everything else, all the other technologies in healthcare. So AI is not going to be different. If we learn to take the benefit and make life easier for patients, for providers, and for the payers, for some extent, of course, it has a lot of benefit in AI has a lot of benefit in healthcare. So I would say, to answer your question on that spectrum, I'm more fascinated, and I'm more, excited about the prospects of AI. So I would be slightly on the optimistic side of the spectrum.
Yeah, same here, because I completely understand what you just said about the risks, and that's bound to happen with anything new that comes in. We haven't seen anything new like this, right? I was listening to some other podcast, and the host on that podcast was saying, you know, I don't know, like 30, 40 years ago, however long, there was no such thing as email, right? Or even when email first came out, big executives weren't sitting and typing emails. They had executive assistants or people in their office, or somebody who was specialized to send emails. But now, today, sending an email is second nature. Like, you do it while walking to get your coffee, or whatever, right? So the point I'm trying to make is, with the new technology like AI or whatever comes in the future, I think human beings are designed to just adapt and learn. So I'm also optimistic that as AI grows and different applications come in, people will learn. They will start getting new jobs that are more like prompt engineer is now a job. I saw on LinkedIn that it's 300, 400K for a prompt engineer in Silicon Valley.
To be honest, even that's getting obsoleted now. There is a auto GPT. There are GPT agents that can do the prompt engineering work. So I think it's going so fast, and you're absolutely right that, like, the jobs. I mean, the people keep saying that, oh, will AI take my job, or will I be replaced by AI someday? I would say yes and no. Yes, AI will take some part of your job, which is repetitive, which is menial. And that will free up time for you to do something or create a new job for yourself. So,
Exactly.
or
Yep.
kind of expand into your role. So I think AI is like a great assistant right now that you can have to free up some time and do what you like and do what matters in your area.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely agree. Can you think of any question that you thought I was going to ask you, but I didn't, because you knew coming in you were going to get
I
a
know.
lot.
I know, and I was like, when you were talking about AI writing regulatory submission, I was like, oh, now he's gonna ask me that, hey, what do you think? Is AI going to take your job? So,
Yeah.
but you did ask that question, but I think you kind of touched upon it a little bit by saying if the AI can write regulatory submission.
Yeah, and you defended that very well.
Yeah, again, it's in line. I mean, if AI can take my job, AI should take my job. That's what I feel. If right now it's a good assistant, which frees up my time to make a strategy for a submission, and rather than worrying about the format, the fonts, the grammar or anything. So it helps me kind of take a very big picture approach and have AI like an assistant helping me.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, man, thank you so much for coming on. This was a great conversation. I loved hearing all your insights. And where can people connect with you after the show if they want to talk about any projects or any interesting collaboration or just learn more about this topic? What's the best way to connect with you?
Sure. No, I'm happy to talk to people. Just connect with me on LinkedIn. And as you can see, I'm very interested in this topic, and would love to catch up on any kind of questions you have or any kind of discussion you would like to have.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vivek. I appreciate your time and wish you all the best with everything.
Thank you.